Hi everyone, welcome back to Cardvoyant. I'm Chris and I am your Cardvoyant, and today we're continuing to talk about the Pentacles. So next we have the Seven of Pentacles, and this is another great card. As you can see, in this card, the figure is tending his garden, and his garden is full of pentacles. Now, this is the idea of, things sort of coming to fruition or beginning to come to fruition. This is about all of the things that we're growing in our lives, the physical things, so this can be business, home, family, anything that we are trying to sort of bring forth in the world, but also make grow in our world. As you can see, again, this figure in the garden is tending his pentacles, and he's taking a break. He's stopped and he's looking at his pentacles. So this can kind of symbol a couple of things. One is that you're at the point where whatever you have been working on, whatever you have been trying to grow, is beginning to take on a life of its own. In other words, it has the ability to grow on its own now, and you can sit back and sort of watch it a little bit. On the other hand, this can be a time when you have been working very hard to grow this garden, and this garden of pentacles, and you are at the point where you need to take a breath. Okay, you need to step back and sort of say, okay, I don't have to work quite as hard as I've been working. You've put in some work. It's time to take a little bit of a breather. Now, we've talked before about shadow tendencies, and all of these cards have that. In the Six of Pentacles, with the wealthy man and the sort of beggars, the shadow aspect of that card can be that dramatic sort of power dynamic, where somebody is lording their wealth over somebody else, or somebody is very stuck in this this victim or beggar's role. Okay, so that can be a shadow aspect of that. Now, there's shadow aspects to every card, and as I said, the shadow tendencies are more like the card in overdrive, and so not the same as a reversed card. And again, we'll talk about reverse cards later. But in this 7 card, the shadow aspect can have to do with sort of being done, sort of being over it, sort of burnout. Can be a little bit about burnout. So in that case, it would call on you to evaluate maybe even the worth of what you're doing. Like, has it become more of a burden than a challenge? So that can be the shadow aspect, but in general, this is more of a positive card, a very positive card of, you've done this work and you're allowed to take a breather. Not that you're burned out, that you can sort of enjoy the fruits of your labor. And that's a good thing, right? So this is a very laudatory card. You've done well, and now this is sort of your reward. You get to sit back, watch what you've created grow, and often grow on its own. Now on to the Eight of Pentacles. So in the Seven of Pentacles, you had this figure who was sort of taking a break after working hard. His pentacles are growing almost on their own. But then you get this Eight of Pentacles, and it's somebody else working again. But this is very much about the passion of your work, about staying connected to the passion of your work, to what you're doing. Literal passion projects sometimes. As you can see, the figure is sitting at his workbench doing this detailed work. So the red that he's wearing in his trousers have to do with that passion, the passion of his project, and maintaining that. the blue, it talks about being sort of grounded, the realistic, purposeful, and he's has that happening as well. So it's talking about sort of being the best that you can be, honing your skills and putting them to the best use possible, and maintaining that passion. You know, doing so, it's a lot about doing what you want to do so that you can have that passion. It's not about what somebody else's idea of work is for you. It's about what drives you passionately in your work and honing that skill. It can be about growing your skill as well. So this may talk about further schooling or some kind of education, some kind of growth of a skill set. But in general, it's this idea of what you are bringing forth into the world that you're passionate about, that you offer to the world. Now, we saw in the number 4 card, the miser card, we saw this figure up on a hill, isolated from his community. And I mentioned that we'll talk about that in a later card, and that is this card, because as you can see in this card, there is a path, a clear path from the tradesman who's creating these pentacles to the town, to his community. So it's very much about staying connected to your community and what you offer and what you want to offer and build for that community. It's this kind of takes a village card, and it's very encouraging to people who are or have been or in the midst of, you know, growing the passion within them and how they offer that to the world. So it's an encouraging card. It's an encouraging card for schooling, for their education, for all those kinds of things. And it's also an affirming card that what you offer is of value to the world, to your immediate community, or, you know, to the world at large. And it's important that we all do. That's why we come here, you know, sort of help each other and to bring forth things that we creatively love into the world. And that's what's happening in this card. So here we are all the way at the 9 of Pentacles, and this is a wonderful card. It is a card of achievement. It speaks of self-achievement. As you can see, we've got this female figure in the card, and she's in this beautiful garden with all this beauty around her, with the falcon on her hand. And this card talks about sort of self-won achievement. This is the natural follow-up to the 8 of Pentacles, where you've been passionately working on this project and now things have come to fruition, and it's very much you. It's your passion, it's your dedication, it's your hard work who has brought this to be. Now, as you can see in this card as well, there is the yellow sky, and we really haven't seen a lot of yellow. So it's a very hopeful card. It's a warm card. It's a rewarding card. As you can see in the right-hand corner, there's 3 pentacles that are set off from the other, and this again is this idea of body, mind, and spirit. You'll see this 3 come up continually in the cards, and that's in different ways and in different settings, and it's this idea of joining body, mind, and spirit, and that's what the figure in this card has done. It's a female figure because it is this nurturing, warm energy. Certainly you can get this in a reading for a man, because it's just the idea of this iconic female figure representing the nurturing that's happened in order to make this goals, these things come to fruition. So this card, as you can see, it mimics in some ways the Empress card. So it does have that idea of fertility, so sometimes it can talk about that, but it's also and mostly about the fertileness of our ideas and how they have grown and how we are now in this place of enjoying them and of satisfaction in them. You can see that the falcon, represents all of these things, this sort of our ideas and our heart and our soul taking flight. But as you can also see, this falcon in the picture is hooded, and that is an idea of discipline, right? That the falcon is directed in a certain way when he's hooded and used for hunting or whatever. So his flight, his freedom has been directed in a specific way, and that's what this is symbolizing, that strength and that dedication to a certain thing that has brought you to this place, and being in control. The figure in the card controls that falcon, and so it's this idea of controlling yourself in order to achieve a goal which you have done. Sometimes you'll get this card as a sort of a precursor, like this is coming, you're on your way to this. But often you'll also get this card as a recognition of what has been achieved. Now here we are at the end of our numbered Pentacles cards with the number 10. And this number 10 card is quite interesting because, as you can see in this card, you've got not only the Pentacles, but the Pentacles surrounding this family, the mother and the father and the child. They've got the dogs. On sort of the other side of a sort of wall, there's the elderly figure. This can sometimes talk about inherited wealth, but it's more often about the completion of not only things but family. And it calls on us to remember that the Pentacles alone aren't enough. Just having things aren't enough. Our connection with people is so important. You can see that in this 10 card, the tower behind them is intact. It's beautifully intact. So it's this idea of a peaceful and an appropriate use of what you have accumulated, and in all different ways. I mean, this clearly can talk about money, talk about things, can talk about jobs, it can talk about status in society. But it also talks, if you will look at the male figure and what he's holding in his hand, it's also talking about the kind of almost magic that this kind of success and completion and sometimes wealth brings into our lives and allows us to bring into others' lives. So this card is not only about being in that place where we have accomplished much and sometimes accumulated much. It's also about what we do within that space. Now that our lives are this way, what do we do? What obligations do we have, not only to each other, as you can see, this family, but also to the bigger community at large? So it is an idea of giving and caring for each other in our nuclear unit, and also to the world at large. It's an idea of noblesse oblige. It's an idea of to whom much is given, much is expected. And yes, you have worked for all that you have accumulated or all that you have, and this can be knowledge, jobs, family, literal things. Yes, you have done the work, but you're connected to that community. And that's sort of our responsibility as human beings on the earth, is to continually try to connect with that community. That doesn't necessarily mean that, you have to become the friendliest person in the world and just be out greeting people all the time. We do this in different ways. We do this in the ways that we are able to do them, given our personalities and ourself and all those kinds of things. But we're here to help others and to benefit others, and as well as ourselves. So this is a card that calls on us to do that and asks us to take a look at the ways in which we do that, can do that within our own families, within our communities, within the world. So it's very much a card of, this is what I have. This is what my hard work has brought me. What do I do with it now? And it asks us to do something positive for ourselves, our families, our communities, the world. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. I really appreciate all of you subscribing, all of you watching. It's been great. I hope you're enjoying the videos, and I hope you'll continue watching and learning more about tarot.